roasting over there.
Yes,
So have
that's
you
true.
basically had a slow summer essentially?
Sorry?
Have you is the summer basically being quite bad over there?
We had got some excerpt from summer during the last month, but not at all yet. So we are
Yeah, I
waiting
think
for that.
we're all waiting for it. I think most of sort of Europe is not having a great time. We're having some people saying the weather is okay, other people saying, you know what, it's a bit spotty.
Yeah.
Good to see Berlin is hot and sunny though. I like Berlin in the summer. I will be there in a couple of weeks. It should be very, very good. Okay, we're live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. It is episode 257, and today we are going to be talking about recruitment automation tips you can do right now. So in other words, we need to really move the industry away from speculation and into actual implementation. How do we actually use some of these wonderful new innovations that are happening and actually apply them to our jobs? Because not only is this something that is an issue that's a curiosity and quite good fun and all that type of stuff, I think it's increasingly important for us to do it because we have to get busy with getting better. There's no question we're still on this global search for productivity, quote unquote, which means that we all have to do more than we did before, typically with less human beings. So we need leading the charge with that. And today we've got a bunch of recruitment experts that are going to help us do just that. So listen, just a few sound checks. I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay on Crowdcast. If you're watching this on Crowdcast, let me know in the chat whether the audio is fine. We are broadcasting this, I think, on multiple LinkedIns. We might even be breaking a record today. So if you can actually watch this on my LinkedIn or in anybody else's LinkedIn, let me know in the comments whether you can hear me okay. And it looks like we can. Okay, great. We can get on with the show. So we have to welcome our firstly, our wonderful co-host. It's Alexandra Yetbai. How are you doing, Alexandra? Great to see you.
Fine, thanks. And I am really, really happy to be here, except that this is a really, really cool topic, and I'm really curious for the insights because now everybody wants AI and automation. So that's the two topics I'm really curious for today's show.
100%. We have lots of cool people in, and I've actually briefed the guests to say they need to come in and actually demo with us. So hopefully they can do that. But before we get into the conversation, we always have to thank our sponsors because without our sponsors, we cannot do Brain Food Live. And every week, a sponsor steps up to make sure we are sorted out. And this week, it's one of our very good friends. It is and everyone's like favorite sort of AI tool, to be honest. It's MetaView. I'm hearing MetaView everywhere. They're doing an amazing job of broadcasting the brand and creating really the category. But let me not take up too much of your time because we've actually got Sal Majos here, the CEO. He's going to talk to us about it. Let's bring Sal on ASAP and he can explain what exciting things are going to be happening down the pipeline with these guys for the rest of the year. It's really great to see this category, by the way. I don't know whether you're using anything of this type, Alexandra, but I think it's been just
Yeah,
fantastic to see it mainstream.
I am a true fan of it. So yeah.
There he is, Sal Majos. Great to see you, Sal. I know you're a super busy man. You're so busy, in fact, that you've not even been able to get a haircut recently. I mean, what is going on with that barnet, sir?
Really, I feel like you've given me a few compliments on the hair in previous episodes. So yeah, okay, good. This means I must be in a bad spot.
I love the volume, but I think there's such a thing as too much volume, and you might be heading there, my friend.
Yeah, I need to get myself an AI avatar, maybe.
I've seen some crazy deep fakes. I'm going to implement one soon. You're not going to there's going to be a Brain Food Live deep fake, and I won't even be here. It's going to happen, I would say, in the next couple of years. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. But listen, Sal, you're a busy man. You got like 60 seconds, don't you? So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about MetaView? What is it? Who should care about it? And what's happening down the pipeline for customers or people who might be interested?
Yeah, great. And it's going to be a little longer than 60 seconds, but yeah, I'll share a little bit more. So let me see, where are we? Here we are. First of all, thanks so much for having me on, and yeah, very excited to sponsor the community. As you know, I've been a long-term member of this community, so excited to keep supporting it. Everyone really knows that MetaView is the best AI note taker for recruiting. Thanks, Hung, for the shout out there. One sort of development that I want to talk about and really lean into just for 2 minutes or so is really the next step that is occurring, and many of our customers are realizing, which is that actually an AI note taker is much more than an AI note taker, and really that these conversations you're capturing are turning into data. I want to show you what I mean in a couple of very particular use cases. If you haven't already tried MetaView for its note taking, you should definitely head over to the website and try it out. But now we're going to focus on a few things, sort of 1 or 2 steps beneath that, when you start to think about the strategic value of the data within the conversations and how we leverage AI to make sense of all of that. The first one is to think about, imagine you're a recruiting manager and you're looking for high level insights. In fact, let's get really specific here and say you're the recruiting manager for engineering, and you're concerned about the talent attraction. You're not attracting the best talent in your hiring pipeline. What I'm going to do here, you just maybe missed this, is I'm going to jump into my engineering pipeline. So there's engineering candidates we've spoken to recently. So engineering candidates we've spoken to. And I'm going to ask MetaView to let me know or show me how these candidates have talked about compensation and benefits in the past. So I'm going to head over to this button here, click discussed, and say compensation, get the spelling right, and benefits. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying to MetaView's AI, look at all of the conversations we've had with engineering candidates in the past, and then go ahead and show me or filter for the candidates that spoke about their compensation expectations and show me what they said. So for me, as someone who's trying to understand, are we actually compensate? Do we have the right comp ranges? I'm now getting firsthand proprietary data. And what MetaView does is it pulls out a quote for me, and then I can actually read through parts of that conversation to actually understand the facts on the ground. How are real engineers that we're speaking to talking about their compensation expectations? I don't need to go around and ask all of my recruiters. I can just ask MetaView to find this information for me, and it will pull out those quotes. So a really massive benefit, again, of capturing your interviews and putting that unstructured data through AI is that you can start to pull out these really rich insights about, in this case, compensation. Jumping back to another use case, maybe let's get more tactical here. And let's imagine you're a recruiter and you're looking to understand the true health of your pipeline. You're a bit concerned. You're working on in this case, a marketing manager rec, and you're a bit concerned actually about the health of the pipeline. You've got numbers in there, but you're just not sure if it's the right candidates. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to jump over to my marketing manager active pipeline. So this is just all the candidates we currently have in the marketing manager role pipeline. We've got an okay number of people, not loads, but not terrible. I know that the hiring manager is going to be really hot on SEO, search engine optimization, search engine marketing for this role. I want to know, do these candidates actually talk about this topic? Because if they don't, then I probably don't have the right candidates in the pipeline. So again, I'm going to pull up MetaView's discussed filter and just see, have any of these candidates talked about SEO and SEM? And looks like I'm in trouble, right? Only 2 of the candidates in my pipeline have actually talked about SEO and SEM in the interview process so far. So I'm getting pretty concerned now that we might not have the right candidates in the pipeline. So I just thought I'd share those examples of how people are going beyond just using the notes and actually starting to use the underlying data from within these conversations to start to solve really practical, tactical problems on the ground. This is a couple of examples we've seen with our customers recently, but really it's an incredibly flexible and powerful tool. So definitely check it out and see if it can solve some of your problems.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's almost like turning into one of those, you know how all social media tools initially started off with a very simple use case, and then suddenly it starts expanding and people are using it in different ways. And I think this is exactly what's happening with you guys right now. I can just imagine, let's say, even a requirement that might have been put on hold, or perhaps it was a historical one. You can dive into the data and actually identify, do we have existing candidates that suddenly could be relevant because we've got a new requirement?
Yeah. Sourcing is huge. Sourcing from your database, not just based on what interviewers happen to remember to put in the ATS, but actually based on what the candidate said, is a massive use case. That was my third, but I didn't want to take up too long, you know?
No worries, man. But no, this is superb. And basically, people can still trial MetaView, can't they? Can't they jump in and have a play? Is that still correct?
Yeah, totally. It's I'm sure a lot of the guests on the panel will also allude to this. It's an amazing time to be alive from an AI tooling perspective, but we can't expect customers to sort of buy sight unseen. So my biggest word of advice for anyone looking at any AI tool, MetaView included, is try before you buy. So head over to MetaView, free trial. No, don't need to put on credit card information. Don't need to speak to a member of our team if you don't want to. You can just try it out.
There you go, guys. MetaView.ai. Make sure you do it. I mean, I think this category does become mandatory in time. It's a superpower for recruiters. And I do think it's going to be a very powerful thing for just sourcing, efficiency, hiring decision making, better candidate experience also. There's loads of there's almost like no reason why you shouldn't be using a tool like this. So get on with it, folks. MetaView.ai. Sal, wonderful to see you. I know you got to bounce off, so I did the 60-second thing was to give you an out, by the way. But you have a good rest of the weekend, and thank you so much for supporting the show, Sal.
Thanks, folks. Enjoy it. Bye.
That's great. And you know what? It's great to see that tool mentioned in multiple sort of situations I'm in, without them knowing that obviously I'm friends with Sile and know the product very well. It's done a fantastic job of expanding its brand recognition.
I think this is the true power of large language models, and to recognize the text, the analytics. So especially the search function. So just find information in previous screening calls, for example. So I think that's really powerful.
Well, you're a sourcer, Alexandra. So imagine you go historically to check out from a coder, has he or she spoken about this thing, and then you can drop a list of people that have said this. Then you could solve so many problems. It could even sort of it reactivates a database of candidates that you previously you wouldn't be using. Now, imagine this, folks. Imagine you had a very large company that had multiple recruiters working on multiple different requirements, but all of them were using a tool like this, and all of that data was available for everyone. A search across other people's pipelines. I mean, come on, that's going to make it obvious that it's going to be an accelerant to your recruitment efficiency. So, okay, go check it out. Alex, before we get on, we need to review the newsletter. So did you read it last week? And if so, what was interesting about it?
Yes, of course. And of course, I chosen the Work Trend annual report because I got shocked, to be honest. So I checked the whole newsletter, and of course, I checked the report as well, and checked the numbers, and had the feeling that, oh no, I can't believe it. So I would like to share just two things from that. It was the joint Microsoft and LinkedIn report. And I would like to highlight two things from that. So first, almost 70% of the leaders mentioned that they would hire someone with AI skills instead of experienced candidates without AI skills. And they mentioned that they wouldn't hire anyone without AI skills. Okay, just remember the numbers, so 70%. And here is the funny part, that if you go ahead in the report, in the newsletter, then you will find that 25% of the companies are planning to offer a training on AI this year. And okay, let's assume that maybe they just had a training last year. But if you go ahead in the report, then you will find that almost 40% of the people who now use AI during their work have got any AI training. So let's think about it. So AI is important in our life, or is it just a thing that we can say that we are AI powered? So it means that there is a really, really big gap in the numbers. So they mentioned that it's super important, but on the other hand, that they will find that most of the people don't know how to get the best from AI tools, just like MetaView, just like ChatGPT and AI tools. So I think that's really important. And on the other hand, I think it is a
No, I think it basically tells you that the C-level people clearly see this as a future. So they want an entirely AI-enabled workforce, but perhaps they're not like investing in the training in it. So they're just trying to do it with recruitment. Which, if you think about it, people being around sort of in the digital transformation era, when we were just moving into the internet, it was the same thing. It was like, how many people here were trained how to search on Google? Zero. How many of us were trained even how to do email? Zero. It was all about, let's recruit people that were already self-trained on this. And brought in. I think exactly the same is going to happen. So the message here, by the way, for anybody who's a job seeker or anybody who's interested in kind of proofing their careers, is that you have to become AI enabled because this is what C-level are looking for.
Put it
And
into
this,
your CV.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
short
you got to,
version. Yeah.
you have to put it in the CV, but you also have to be able to do it. So you got to carve out time. I'm talking to myself here because I'm also like everyone else. I'm busy, don't have the time, but I need to take a deep dive in it. So every hour, dive into something new, learn something about AI. Cool. By the way, I just shared the report link into the chat stream there. So make sure you download that. It's a free download, Microsoft LinkedIn, really interesting and accessible report.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good point to the audience to ask that what are the AI skills? I just seen the same question from Brett in the chat. Because but let's throw in the answer. So what do you think? What are the AI skills? Because so not just mention specific certificate, just like in a LinkedIn style. So what do you think? What are the AI skills? What would you add to your CV as a recruiter or sourcer? So I think that's a really interesting question.
That actually could be a setup for another show, because do you know what I mean? Like you're quite right. Like AI is such a big topic, obviously, but what
Yeah.
is being skilled in AI? Prompt engineering might quite correct. I think that would go down as one. Yeah. What else is it? I mean, ultimately, AI, the huge innovation on the UX on conversational AI is that it should be a de-skilling exercise. So the idea is that you should just be able to use natural language and get an output. So prompt engineering is one. Agent creation, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you're getting to more deeper. I think the automation side is maybe another where you can stitch different products together. Right now, it's still pretty much lots of independent products that can actually be operating together. So perhaps that's sort of a multi-product type of automation is another feature, but really
Yeah,
good question.
exactly.
Cool. Give us another one, Alexandra. What else is interesting in the newsletter?
I find it really interesting that the end of the traditional newspapers and magazines, because so for example, the journalists wouldn't like to share sensitive information and wouldn't like to put so much work into the same thing. And I think it's really important because of the future of search. So now we just realized that Google would like to change, for example, the search experience. So they just mentioned that it's time to forget, for example, the blue links, because they would like to give us different information. And I think this may be the end of the traditional journalism. So it means that we will get information from other sources, but not in the traditional way. And I think it's really important for us as sourcers and recruiters that we have to prepare that we will find information from other sources in a different way. So I think that will be our future, maybe another show, that it will change a lot. And I think, and really, I think that it's really exciting times that a lot of things will change. The search experience, the newspapers, the magazines, the source of information. So I think that the recruitment and the sourcing will change as well with it.
Yeah,
With
this is
that
a
way.
really important point. I mean, I thought it was a really interesting post because journalism is generally it's down in multiple areas. It's down in terms of general people using it because people are getting distracted by other ways to interact with information,
Yeah.
finding information in different places. It's also losing our revenue as a business, so there's an issue. And there's also a case where I guess the respect for the institution of media has also declined. And this is a really interesting, kind of sad lament to say, look, the industry is kind of dying. What do we do about it? And it's kind of an attempt by this journalist here to say, look, we need to actually get our mojo back, and this is the only way to get our business back on its feet is to be brave enough to start, speaking candidly again and making, accurate observations rather than just trying to go for the clicks all the time. But yeah, I think it portends to I don't think there's much hope for it. And it portends to what might happen to many industries with this new series of innovations that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And we have to decide what is true, what is not true. So I'm not sure that, have you heard that there was a big deep fake scam? So a finance worker just paid, I think, more than $20 million with a deep fake with the CFO. So it means that it is part of our work as well to decide, is it true, is it not true, so how can we handle the source of truth. So I think that's not the bright part of the future.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. But for folks who don't know about this, I think this is the second time this has happened. But
yeah.
some guy went on a Zoom call and he was tricked by a deep fake video of someone who he thought was real, and then made a $25 million mistake or something like this. And then you can say, did he make a mistake? It was a very convincing deepfake. I just saw today a very convincing deepfake. Who the person who created it, if he didn't tell me that was the case, I may well not have known. I would have just thought it was a bit glitchy email, yeah, a video, should I say? So we're getting to the point where, yeah, we're not able to kind of trust what's out there. My part of the reason, secret thing, Alexandra, but the reason why I've been traveling like a maniac as much as I have this year is because I have realized that all of my information is all digitally produced. So Brainfood is almost all, I'm plugged into the internet and I'm just absorbing digital information.
Mm.
And I'm sharing it, of course, and amplifying it. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? How do I know that's the case? It's like I really don't. So I need to go and travel. I need to go meet people. I need to hear from people who are actually
Mm.
doing the job themselves on the ground. What is the message? What is going on? And yeah, it's something I think we all need to do. Go out and meet people. You've got to validate and corroborate what you're reading on the internet.
Maybe a few weeks later we will see the first deep fake recruiting brain food. So,
You know what? There's so much media out there. This is now 257 episodes, so there is enough training material
yes,
for someone to do that.
perfect. So don't need so
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, give us one more, Alexandra, before we get into this.
One more information from.
Yeah, one more from the newsletter.
Mhm. Okay, and another part was that, again, from the first report, that most of the employees just bring their own device to the workplace. And I think we have to take care for that, because if something is really dangerous, then that's because some of the companies just mentioned that they wouldn't like to allow, for example, MetaView. I know a company that just mentioned that no similar screening tools because of the GDPR, because of other stuff. So the recruiters started to use their own mobile phone and so on, because it was, of course, easier. So I think as recruiting leaders, managers, talent acquisition, other C-level managers, we have to take care for that. So if we ban the use of some new tools at the workplace, then we will reveal that our employees will use their own devices. And I think that's a natural reaction, I think, because if you just started to use some tools and realize that's useful for your work, of course you would like to use that. So it means that I think that's a really, really interesting phenomena, that bring your own device to work. But of course, here is the security part, that they would like to ban, for example, ChatGPT, but then they will realize that the employees will use their own device.
It's exactly. It does remind me so much of early internet. Where not even early internet, even 5, 6 years ago, there were companies that banned people from using the internet. You'd be amazed. But it was considered to be a distraction. Why would you use this? And of course, you just use it on your mobile phone. So everyone is walking around with technology that is powerful enough to get
Yeah.
access to the internet. And in fact, the latest rollout of ChatGPT 4.0, is clearly designed to be increasingly mobile first. You can talk into it. So we're getting into a point where banning it isn't the solution. We have to get basically compliant products. Otherwise,
Yeah.
people are going to use non-compliant products. So I think that all of the companies that are in that category of interview intelligence, if they get their compliance right, they should be in good shape, because they'll be considered to be the safe way to use this type of tech. Okay, cool. Let's get on with this conversation. Let's bring on some of our guests. We've got a whole host of people to bring on. I'm going to try and do this in time zone order so that we're not sort of getting people out of bed unnecessarily. We do have Paul Carmen, I believe, here. So let's bring on Paul. Is he there? There he is. I'll invite Paul onto the screen. And by the way, folks, what we want to do is just, I'm going to do one by one by one by one. So you usually have a panel, but today I want basically people to come in, talk about, what they've learned, and maybe even demo something if they've got it ready to go. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how folks kind of operate in that basis. There he is, Paul Carman. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing fine. Hello.
Great to see you. It's been a long while since we've had a chat. It might be several years since we last had the opportunity to speak, Paul.
I think so. It was on a rainy day in Berlin in a cafe. No, actually it was sunny. Wait, we weren't in London. So yeah, it was very sunny in Berlin in a nice cafe, but it's been years.
Yeah, we have to correct that. I'm in Berlin for a couple of days next, in a couple of weeks. So if you're around, man, we should catch up.
Always, always.
Cool. Paul, as sort of for the people who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself, who are you, what it is you do?
Of course. So I'm Paul. I have a background in IT. That's where I started. And as every good recruiter, stumbled into recruiting afterwards, and been there for 15 years now. And in the past 3 years, I mostly focused on AI integration. So I'm actually very close to this topic, work with big companies, smaller companies, integrating new AI tools for recruiting and HR. And yeah, that's what I'm doing currently still, and I'm having a ton of fun with it.
Fantastic. It's great to see people like you actually operate as this type of consultant and implementation figure, because one of the problems we've seen is companies, generally speaking, recruiters have kind of loved the innovation, but the innovation has completely outpaced the implementation. And I think it takes someone who's outside of the operational needs to come in and actually help do that. So wonderful to see that you've got that experience. Tell us about what is the demand? Like, what are companies seemingly like demanding, and what is what in your consideration the most high impact automation that you've performed?
So it's really interesting, right? I call myself an AI consultant, but I come into HR departments and they're pretty much still at Excel level, if at all. Some of them are still at Post-it level. So the idea of implementing a huge AI tool is almost far too gone, right? So it's almost always at a automation level. But I have some cool projects where I just can play around, as I love to call it. And for example, one very, very loved thing is now, one thing we actually talked about on LinkedIn, one of my predictions was that a lot of there's a huge influx of applications. So now we have to have a better filter system. And let's be really, really frank here. The ATS filter system that already exists, they are already existing for years, are terrible because they exclusively work through keywords, right? So if you do like this white space hack on your CV, put 50 times Java and 50 times Spring Boot, so they will, and then make it white color so nobody can read it, but the machine can read it. It actually works really well. It does not work with LLMs because LLMs are a good bit smarter. So what I do a lot with clients is implementing LLMs that literally just read the whole CV, use their own reasoning why it's good with the posting, and then use a true or false statement to send it through the pipeline, which works really, really well. We see that it's better than junior recruiters and junior sourcers. It's very much worse than hiring managers, but everything in between it kind of catches. So it's only for the first stage here, right? We're only talking about first stage application.
So you're basically implementing some software that's able to read a textual CV and then be able to make a yes, no, a pass or no decision on those applicants. Folks, if you had such a product, would that be useful to you? I mean, you're basically advertising a job. You got 1,000 candidates through the pipe. Can't manage that. Would it be useful to have some sort of automated tool that helps you do this? Paul, it seems to me that it's going to be useful, right? I mean, that's a rhetorical question. I don't see anyone saying no.
Yeah, they pay a lot. So yeah, it's a very expensive tool at the end of the day, right? Because you don't want to use ChatGPT because it's just too data. But we create our own open source chatbot and then use that. And that's the hosting alone costs a lot. But it's such a time saver. I mean, every recruiter knows how much time is wasted in just scramming through thousands of applications.
Okay. So let's spin this back. Like, how does this actually work? It obviously requires. It's not cheap. It's not something they could do tomorrow. So it's kind of off brief, Paul. But we'll ask you something. We'll ask you something that's doable by one person. But I want to understand a little bit more about your process as to how this actually works. So I'm this person, I need this tool. How does it work?
Awesome. You can have this tomorrow. This is not, it's not high, it's not a huge problem. Engineers won't sit at it because it's too boring, to be honest. It's pretty much just an implementation of 2 APIs. So let's break it down real easy. Your ATS, your applicant tracking system, has an API always, right? If you don't use SAP SuccessFactors or Oracle, and I think even them, but I don't work with those because no, thank you. But if you have Greenhouse, if you have your Lever, they have an API. So what you can do is you literally want to have this moment where a candidate is uploaded, be read by an LLM. An LLM is just ChatGPT is like the one you all know. The most famous for open source is Llama 3 now from Meta, which is amazing. It's so good. And imagine just having that Llama 3 sitting on your own GCP, so Google Cloud or AWS, right? Which is very easy because at this point, they just have their own tools to just upload it and train it real quick. And then instead, your prompt in between is, hey, this is our job description, and here's the candidate. Look at it and tell me if I like him, and then answer with true or false, right? You use a few more words, prompt engineering, etc., but let's not go into the details. And if it's true, the candidate goes further. If it's false, they don't. That's it, right? That's the whole magic. That is the very uncomplex thing that it is, because an LM is really good at reasoning why this fits to that. It can just do that really, really well, which is why this is one of the skills it possesses.
Very interesting. I think everyone understands this, right? Let me know in the chat if this is confusing for you in any way. Don't be ashamed to say that's the case, because this is still very new. Paul's like at the leading edge of this. But essentially, we're not talking about like a huge implementations or anything that's overly difficult. The main thing is that you've got to have a fairly modern ATS that has an API. You've got to have access to some sort of cloud system. And then it looks like you're using Llama. So you download the open source tool to do that. Is that right?
Don't even have to download it. It's already on GCP. Google and AWS, they both offer it already. It is so easy. It is the best thing ever. You should know a bit of Python, and if you want to implement it, but yeah, it's well done. That's exactly how it's done.
Do you have a safe way to show any of this, Paul? Don't show us any confidential stuff.
Show you.
You cannot do that?
Any of them. So I wanted to show a tool because I didn't want to bore everyone. And I was like, I have this cool tool, which is literally just, if you have a hiring manager, if you have multiple hiring managers for one role, they all give feedback. I always did it that I summarize the feedback and send it to the hiring manager, which is a lot of time that I wasted there. And I had a company that said, we waste a lot of time there. And I was like, well, that's very simple to solve. So let's solve it. So I implemented a LLM in their greenhouse that just read all the feedback, summarized it together, and sent it to the last hiring manager or for the committee, right? Awesome. And I wanted to show you that. Obviously, I can't. So what I did, as I always do, last hour, I just built it. So if you want to, I can just show you what I built, how it works, and yeah, show you also one of my favorite ways of automating with ChatGPT. So let me share my screen real quick, if it lets me. So I'm doing the whole thing, which is a bit annoying, so I'm sorry for that, but I'm going to have my whole screen shared, which I can't do. I can.
You should be able to do it, yeah.
So sorry for that if you did see. I hope everyone sees everything. So
yeah, it's happening now. So
let's start with this. Don't remember any of these keys. No, they will be deleted afterwards. It's very bad programming. If there's any programmer in the audience, I'm sorry. I will repent later. But this is the entire code. And it looks maybe complicated if you never saw Python code, but it's very, very simple. And I will show you what it does right now. So what I did is I have a ATS somewhere where there's 5 hiring managers that send me feedback to this awesome candidate chain. And now I'm like, okay, I want all of this. So you can see here what it does. Found 5 nodes. So the bot now or the script says, hey, there's 5 nodes. And it takes a moment because that's how, unfortunately, APIs work. And I wish it was faster, but this is it, right? This looks very hard to read. So what I asked it to also create a PowerPoint, because we don't want to send out any kind of emails right now. And this is the PowerPoint at the end of the day, right? It read five different interview summaries. I will show you them in a second. And all of them were good. So the hiring manager recommendation is, it's impressive. She should be interviewed, right? Or she would be hired. Very, very simple stuff. So how it all works and how I did it in an hour is very interesting, because I try to not think like a programmer, but how I call it, like a Bayesian programmer, someone that uses brute force to do something. And I use this. I want to create a script that automatically sends interviewers feedback from Airtable to ChatGPT. I used Airtable because I currently don't have any ATS accessible, because they're very stingy with their free plans, and then print a summary of the interview feedback. So what it gives me is what I need to install and a lot of code. I literally just copy pasted it. And then it didn't work, so I copy pasted the error code. And this goes on for a few things, right? It's pretty much just me saying, hey, this is an error, copy paste it again, etc. So until the end, it actually worked. And the whole thing sits in Airtable. And I will show you now where it takes us. This is amazing. And here is my fun test environment, right? Here's the applicant tracking system, or the kind of thing it should be. And you can see here's feedback, relatively long. Here's feedback, relatively long and different, etc., right? And this 5 times. And all it does is just taking that stuff, put it into, I will stop sharing now because everything else is a bit boring. Taking that, summarizing it, and then directly send it to a hiring manager committee, right? Which makes life, for me at least, a lot easier. And for a customer, we saved 900 hours a year, which was awesome. So yeah, that is kind of the thing you can actually do if you just want to be a bit annoyed by ChatGPT and do a bit of brute forcing, Barbarian programming, or you can easily also do this with a lot of tools like Zapier, etc., if you want to pay a bit more.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Folks, what do you think of that automation? I mean, this is basically an example, by the way, how one person can essentially create a solution. And yes, you do need to have a little bit of technical literacy, I would say, but really it's more like technical confidence, because people see the sort of the command line and kind of freak out because we've basically grown up with a graphical interface. But the command line is literally, we need to find a way to kind of make this more friendly, I think. But ultimately, you can interact with the code, copy and paste it into ChatGPT and just say what's wrong with it. And in fact, ChatGPT came up with the code, so they're able to ultimately come up with a solution there. So very, very good indeed. Paul, love to hear more from you, but we have to move on with the show. I believe you're available for this type of work, right? So if people are interested in...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just showed you how you can do it, but please don't do everything. Pay me for some of it.
You know what? The truth is, people will do that. Like for instance, I know how to repair my window because I actually worked as a builder's mate for 3 days repairing windows. I know how to do that, but I'm not going to do it. Do you know what I mean? It's going to take me too long. I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to pay someone to do this. So I think that definitely there is a market for individuals that have gone to the implementation stage. I'm busy because I'm a recruiter operating. I can't be dealing with this because it might potentially distract me for longer than I want, whereas you as an expert can predict how long it would take. Therefore, that's that confidence of how long it would take is the key difference is why the money is worth it. So Paul, thank you very much. We're going to keep moving on, keep in touch. We'll see. Hopefully I'll catch up with you soon, man.
Absolutely. See ya.
Thanks.
Great. Always great to see Paul. A wonderful example. Hey, Alex, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that was super cool. And I would like to highlight that he mentioned that it seems to be complicated, but if you start it to build up, then you will realize that it is not so hard. So you just mentioned that when you see the code, you get the feeling that, oh, no, I will never. But if you start to use ChatGPT, you can ask anything. So for example, I always ask it that please explain it. I am 60-year-old, please help me. And you will get the feeling and you will be able to create such things. And of course, let's pay him. So that's the other
Yeah,
part.
it is. I mean, yeah, I think the user interface, we've grown up with it, and it basically makes us very confident or alarmed if we don't see a similar graphical user interface. However, the command line is a version of an interface. It's just what the machine looks at without the formatting. And yeah, you could simply ask ChatGPT to explain it to you, or as you say, explain it as if I'm 5 years old. And in any case, we just have to get over being intimidated, because we can't allow that to stop us from becoming efficient. Okay, let's bring on Martin. Martin Redstone is here, good friend of the Brainfood Live, of course. Oh, by the way, whilst Martin's coming on, we always do this in the middle of every show. It is very important that Brainfood Live is a conversation starting show, not a conversation stopping one. So if you're interested in the sort of content we're talking about, this type of discussion based, sometimes a how-to demo, that kind of thing, you're interested in this content, make sure you share your LinkedIn URL into the comment thread in Crowdcast if you're watching it here. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, share it in the chat, in the comment thread on wherever you're watching on LinkedIn, and then connect with everyone else who's doing the same. Because why don't we continue this conversation afterwards? Don't wait for us. Don't allow Brainfood Live coming off air to stop this conversation, because obviously there is much more to learn. Okay, we have Martin on screen. Martin, wonderful to see you, sir. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Alexandra.
Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me again. Martin Redstone. So I am an AI automation consultant, specialist, whatever you want to call me. So for the last kind of 6 years, well, almost actually 7 years now, I've been working with recruiters, recruitment tech vendors, RPOs, recruitment agencies on mainly automating conversations. So my specialist area is conversational AI. I've been building chatbots, voice bots, multimodal bots for the last several years. But on top of that, whenever you're automating conversations, you tend to be automating the processes around it as well. So so very keen to be here and help educate our community on things that you can automate within the process.
And fabulous to have you on, Martin. Do follow Martin. Do follow Paul, by the way. These are people that regularly publish things and have conversations online. So that just simply following them on LinkedIn can give you, that osmotic information transfer. Martin. But by the way, I love the emergence of this kind of mini community of implementation consultants in the automation AI space. I personally am a big evangelist for this idea. Even though I know it's like not easy necessarily at this point, it's very emergent, but I am convinced that a recruitment agency or a recruitment function is unlikely to do it on its own, because we're too busy, we're too hammered with business as usual. We've actually understaffed because obviously we've let people go. So we need help. We need external people to come in and dump some solutions to us. So I wonder whether you can show us anything, Martin. What do you think? Do people want anything that's been sort of interesting? You say, yeah, this seems to work. People seem to dig it.
Well, I think so. Everybody gets, ChatGPT has been around for 18 months or so now, and everyone kind of gets the kind of standard use cases that people are doing with it. Helping to create content ultimately. So job descriptions, etc. And we've seen some other examples today, and we'll see some more a little bit later as well. Where I wanted to come at it is thinking more around not just AI, but automation. I think we need to make that difference very, very clear. So a lot of the time people are talking about AI and they're talking about generative AI. But I think it's also really important to think about automation from the basis of there are a lot of really boring, really repetitive, really mundane tasks that recruiters do that don't need large language models to take them away from their daily work and free them up with time. So I thought it was really important to get back to basics and think about, let's all go back, when we've had a weekend and we go back on Monday and we're dreading getting back to work, and it's normally we're dreading getting back to work because we've got those repetitive, mundane, robotic things that we need to do. So yeah, my takeaway is think about those and try and get rid of them. And it's not just about using ChatGPT. What I've got to show today fingers crossed it works. I hate a live demo. Is a bit of an automation process. It's a prototype, so you'll have to bear with me on it. And I am sharing things like my phone screen as well. So again, I've tried to get rid of as much personal information as possible, but I know just like Paul just before. So let me see if I can choose an entire screen. There we go. Right, I'll be flipping back and forth between a few different things here, so bear with. So let me talk through this. On one side of the screen, you can see a Google form. Let's just imagine that's an application form, and a really bog standard application form. Now, the whole point is, and you can also see my phone screen as well next to it as well, and that is kind of casting live from my phone. So I submit an application form, name, email address, phone number, can upload a CV or what have you if I want to. Now, that gets submitted. The automation kicks in. I'm really hoping this works. The automation kicks in. And what that will do is it will send me a text message to say, thank you very much for your application. We'd love to find out a little bit more about you. I'm wondering that it might be taking its time, but ultimately, I'm looking at my phone going, come on. It's not always instantaneous. But I get a text message, and what that will do, it's not coming, which is good fun because it's just not instantaneous. It will. I'm just trying to think how I can speed that up. I was thinking about pre-recording this beforehand. So I get a text message saying, thanks a lot for your application. We'd like to find out a bit more about you. Takes you into a chatbot conversation. And that chatbot conversation, I'm wondering why this isn't going as fast as I wanted it to, which is really frustrating.
Don't worry, Martin.
That
I think we
chatbot conversation, I'm just wondering if we can... Yeah, so yeah, I wonder why that isn't coming through. The chatbot conversation grabs a little bit more information about you. Now, what that then does, and this does actually work because I was playing with it beforehand, but it's just not going as quick as I'd hoped to. That finds out a little bit more information about, asks you questions on the role, such as tell me about a time when you've done X, Y, and Z, etc., etc., etc. Now, collects all that information and then organises an interview and what have you, sends the interview confirmation into the candidate's calendar, sends interview confirmation into the hiring manager's calendar. And then from there, it also takes the information from the application form, takes the information from the chatbot conversation, and creates an email, passes it through a large language model, and creates an email back to the hiring manager that says, hey, look, we've booked in this interview for you. Here's an overview of what we know so far. Here's some few questions and conversation points. So what it's trying to do is automate that kind of information flow through kind of the initial screening onto the hiring manager to give them some pre-briefing on the interview. That's it in a nutshell. I'm really annoyed that...
Don't worry, I think you explained it really well. I mean, basically, screen share is essentially...
But that's automation in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, screen share is just basically an illustration. Just don't worry about that at all. I think we get the concept, which is essentially you've created an asset that's online. Let's say it's a job description or a job advert. A candidate sees that, applies, but then there's an application form that they have to complete, and complete the application form, which they're going to give a number, and then from the number you trigger a message back to invite them to interact with a chatbot, and that chatbot can then interrogate and create more information, and from that point it can determine whether it's worth booking in an appointment to the next stage. So again, I see this as a very interesting implementation to deal with applicant flow, basically. If you've got too many applicants coming in fact, any applicant coming in, why don't we use this type of tool to do it? Oftentimes, I think this could be very useful. It can't be used in every recruitment context, of course, but if you're advertising a job and someone applies to you, generally speaking, you can ask them the candidate to do a few things there. Or should we say you can ask the applicant to do a few things, because an applicant is not the same as a candidate. Tell us about how you managed to put this together, Martin. What's the technology behind this?
So this is kind of all my prototyping stuff. So this isn't kind of what I use live in production, but basically stringing this prototype together is Zapier in the background. So the Google Forms obviously sends a trigger into Zapier. I then use an SMS service from either Twilio or something else to send the SMS out. My prototype chatbot solution I use is kind of Landbot, sorry, it's my accent. And that's just a very, very simplistic chatbot prototype. In the real world, when I'm building complex conversational AI solutions, it's usually either something like Google Dialogflow, Google Vertex, or VoiceFlow. But Landbot back into Zapier to say conversation's been completed, here's all the information. And then Zapier kind of creates the emails. And for the large language model, I'm actually using Gemini to create that overview for the hiring manager. So it's all strung together with Zapier, which and from my perspective, I'll stop sharing now because this isn't working, and you can see all of our pretty faces a lot better. Basically, my understanding from this session today is all about automations that people can do immediately. I think it's really important to share those kind of no-code, low-code tools like Zapier. I use other tools like make.com as well to really kind of help string together automations. I would recommend people go out. You talked about tech comfortability earlier, which I loved as a phrase. I think people need to go out and learn some of these no-code tools to help with their automations. No, we all can't be kind of Python developers. We can't trust large language models to create Python scripts for us because there's a lot of iteration needed. So go out and learn some of those no-code, low-code tools so that you can actually start stringing things together and playing with it yourselves. And like I said, in that kind of several turn automation, there's only one small piece that's using a large language model.
Yeah, very good. I think we all like this simply because these tools are designed to be accessible. A Zapier, of course, is probably the largest product that helps do these kind of connections between different applications. And now, a lot of them are either free or very, very cheap to use. So it's not like heavy in terms of cost. And if you can get it working, potentially, you can create some really important efficiencies in your process. But even if you didn't, folks, imagine how much you would learn if you just simply try putting some of this together. I think you'd develop your confidence tremendously as a person interacting with AI. Alex, you were about to say something?
Yes, because I just heard Zapier. I am not sure that have you seen the new Zapier function about it is called the Center of AI or something like that. I'm not sure about the name, but this is a quite new function, which means that it is almost enough to start to talk to Zapier. So it means that it is becoming easier and easier. So so even if you have the feeling that, oh, this is not for me, so it is almost just like ChatGPT now. So it means that it is really, really easy to start to use, and it is a kind of a new function. So fresh news from the oven.
So that's a really interesting point, and probably about just over 12 months ago when I was on this show, when it kind of was all kicking off with large language models, one of the things that I said was, if you're a tech vendor, the thing that you've got to start thinking about now is putting a conversational interface on the front of your technology, because the speed to productivity is going to be so much quicker. And that's why we saw ChatGPT explode in user numbers overnight. And so tools like Zapier have done exactly that. They've put that natural language, that conversational interface on the front. They've said, what do you want to automate? And so you can type in, I'd like to have Google Forms send a text message, etc., and it will start building it for you. So that kind of that speed to productivity on tools that are having conversational interfaces put on front, they're taking over the world. And as somebody who's a conversational engineer, I'm delighted to see it. Absolutely delighted to see it.
Yeah, I think we're in a very happy place. And by the way, again, Martin is available for this type of consultancy. So if anybody wants to know more, just drop Martin a DM and just learn something. I mean, even if you spent an hour of consultancy with Martin, you're going to get educated. Your team will get educated on this, and you can try a lot of this stuff for yourself going forward. So very important to do it. I'm an evangelist for increasing the comfort level of recruiters. We need to get there. Martin, wonderful to see you. Let me let you go. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, man.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, you too. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Cool. This is great. We're going to keep rolling on because I think the Americans have woke up. To be honest with you, the Americans woke up early. So Mike is already awake and Brett is already here. So let's bring Mike on first. Brett, we're going to get you on after that. I think I've got the time zoning right. Where is he? Michael. Oh, don't tell me he's called himself something else. There he is. No, Mike Wolford.
That's a sourcing task,
I'm just like literally eyeballing the names. Like there's no sourcing involved here.
Maybe you should use a kind of an automation for that next time.
I could do with a bot that helps me pick people out and get them invited on. But here we have Mike. Wonderful to see you, sir.
Good morning. It's good to see you, Hung. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Wonderful to have you, man. Mike, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. My name is Mike Wolford. I'm probably known now for being the AI recruiter. I work for a couple of companies. I work for Recruiting Daily, doing some consulting and training. And I work for a company called Revilio Labs, which does labor market analytics.
Yeah, we love Revilio Labs. They've actually featured multiple times on Brainfood because they produce some really insightful and accessible information for us. So I've just shared Mike's LinkedIn into the chat on Crowdcast, so make sure you connect with Mike. Mike, what do recruiters look to in terms of automation? Where is the area in the recruitment pipeline that you're seeing most demand? And where do you think, from your own experience in terms of implementations, where you've had greatest impact?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Hung. So I think the thing I see in the market most is a focus on tools that do matching. So seems to be the quest of the market. Everybody wants to get really, really good at matching. I can understand why. To me, it's one of the riskier areas of automation because it's a decision-making point, and there are other places in recruiting where it would be much simpler to automate. So, for example, we've seen examples, and I have my own AI agent that I've built as well to help me with writing emails and job descriptions and things like this. The nice thing about these next generation of tools is that you can build them yourself. I will be giving a boot camp June 6th and 7th where I'll be teaching people how to build their own AI tools. And I think for recruiters and sourcers, that's probably the best bet, is to learn how to customize these agents to do your own work for you. The nice thing about GPTs, for example, is they can learn your rules of writing, and they can learn your style, and they can learn your tone. So, for example, on mine, I have it not only programmed with instructions about how to write, which is what most people are using prompt engineering for, right? They're like, hey, I want to write a professional email, and it's going to this person, right? They write all that out every single time. The next generation will be you program that into the GPT in English. You don't have to learn Python, and tell the agent, hey, you are my agent that writes outbound emails. That's what you do. Here are my rules about writing. Like, number one, don't ever start with, I hope this finds you well. Number two, start every message with, a question or an interesting fact. Step number two is a required step, right? You got to think like a computer a little bit. But if you give it step-by-step instructions, and then those of us who have been fortunate to write and produce content like you have, Hung, you have this huge database of training data now, and that will be the differentiator between products. It's relatively straightforward at this point in time to build these tools. And so the differentiator is going to be two things. The examples you give it, because that's the second part of the equation with AI, and the data you train it on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw at some point in the next 12 months, Hung Lee's Recruiting Brainfood AI Recruiter, right? That's just trained on the episodes and the guests that you've had and the transcripts you've had. And you could brand it and be your own product.
let me interrupt Mike on that. Would you want to see an AI version of this show? I don't know. We
Yeah,
get
that'd
sort
be
of my
awesome.
voice cloned or something.
We could
I
do it
would
both. I could clone myself too, and we could have them interview each other.
I would insist on some modifications to my appearance. I tell you what, maybe we can get a co-host as a second head on here. Make it into a sci-fi horror show or something. But I think it would be fun to do. We should do it. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, 257 episodes. That's 257 hours plus of verbal content coming in. We can transcribe all that and then see what comes out of it. We should probably do this. But okay, Mike. Loads of interesting things. Is there an implementation that you could demonstrate for us, or something you've done that you can say, you know what, this is pretty easy. You should go ahead and do that.
Yeah, let me share my screen here. And we'll do the entire screen. Forgive me, I was a recruiter for a living, so I have a million tabs open. This is an example of my AI agent. This is in GPT-4. And what I want to show everybody here is like you don't actually need to be a software engineer to build these things. So I've named it, I've given what it does, I've come over here and then I've given it, directions about what type of bot it is, what type of rules it should follow. For those of you who think it will never get better at writing introductions, right? I actually wrote this, right? Number 12. So make sure it doesn't write poorly. That's kind of the first half of this. And then you'll see over here, I have a copy of my book, The AI Recruiter. And I uploaded the contents of that book. And then I also was able to import articles that I'd written. And so it learned what I know basically about recruiting and sourcing and combined with very specific instructions for very specific tasks. So if I tell it to write a recruiting email, it's not just going to write an email. It's going to ask me, and as a matter of fact, now it's misbehaving. It's supposed to, because this is in the developer stage, sorry. But you come pre-programmed. And so on the back end, I've told it not to do certain things. And it, yeah, here we go. So it'll ask me, who's the email to be sent to, right? Do you have a resume? What's the topic of the email? So just with a few little guides, it's going to let's see, one there, do you have a resume? No. What topic of give it basic information and it's going to go ahead and go, and you don't have to pre-program it and think about everything every single time. So this is the thing that agents are really great for is stop sharing.
Well, one sec, Mike. Why would
Yeah.
you? So why is this existing, and why can't I just use ChatGPT for it? I'm sure people are saying, you know what, I just use
You can.
ChatGPT.
You just gotta write out the instructions every time. With your GPTs, like I could tell it I want to write an article about the importance of people analytics, and it has all of my articles, it has my book, and it has access to GPT-4's large language model understanding. So it's able then to create an article basically in my tone and my voice, and very, very short order, I'm able to get content out. So for me, it's helpful not only in the recruiting task of writing emails and job descriptions, the things that you do every single day as a recruiter. And that's awesome to automate that. It really is helpful. But you want to give that time back to your candidates and like actually start prepping them for interviews. And so if you're going to get this time back from automation, you also need to think about where you're going to invest it. And to me, I would be looking at two major areas. I would be one, looking at where can I be a advocate for my client or my candidate, and where can I be an advisor to my client. Like that's the two areas I would be looking for when I automated this. I think automating scheduling interviews, the phone screen, a lot of the initial work could and can be done by AI actually. And I know there's resistance to that, but there's just no like, if you're a recruiter right now and you apply for a recruiting job, like within an hour, there's 100 applicants. How in the world are you ever going to get through all that noise? Nobody's even going to see your resume. So with the AI, everybody who wants to interview has a chance, and I think that that's a positive thing. Because we as humans, we simply can't interview or talk to enough people fast enough.
No, I think that's absolutely clear. Mike, wonderful to. I need to ask you a question actually. When you say you
Sure.
have your own agent, can you explain to us what exactly that is and how you actually got there? Because I'm sure there's people out there saying, "Yeah, I want my own agent. How do I do that?"
Yeah. The AI recruiter is my agent, and the very first thing I did, there's really two pieces to creating an agent. The first is, well, besides knowing what you want it to do, obviously, the first is the set of instructions. So the more detailed instructions you give it, the more specific you are about how you want it to write, the better it will be. The second thing you need to do is give it an example. So you're like, I want you to write interesting and engaging outreach. Great. Here's an example of an email that I thought was really good without, grabbing attention or whatever. If you pair those, you'll have a really powerful agent. If you have your own content and you've been a content creator, adding that to the mix makes it even better and even easier because the more samples of your work and your writing it has, the better it's able to mimic your tone. So to me, that's really the two steps you want to take. First, you want to find a place. I was using GPT-4. It's not the only one that's available, but those are the two things that you really need. You don't need to be a software engineer. You don't need to be extremely technical. You just have to say, I know I want my agent to be able to handle the following tasks. And here
Yeah.
they are. And once you've decided that this is what you want to tackle, then you need to decide on instructions on how you would do that. Like you're explaining it to a 5-year-old, right? How would you
Yeah.
do this step by step? And now I'm extra lucky because I have some content to give it and examples from everything I've written about. So I can go to it now as a resource and I can ask it to do almost anything in recruiting or, for me at this point.
All right, so I think a couple of things here we need to do. If you've got sort of lots of training data, then that can be fed into the thing to make sure it comes out in your knowledge and your voice. Probably one of the reasons why people don't want to use like ChatGPT and stuff like this is because maybe you're uploading into a place that isn't super secure. So potentially you want to use a different type of product for that. But just conceptually, this is what you want to do. And secondly, you can continue to sort of give it instructions in terms of its output to be able to then give you what you want. Mike, I appreciate the time. We're flying through this. We still got to get Brett on, so I've got to move on real quick. But why don't you share the link to your bootcamp? I think a lot of people might be interested in that. Put it in the chat, please. And also share a link to your book. I forgot about this, but yeah, go ahead and do that. And we'll make sure that people are aware of this. And of course, read up on it. This is going to be something that you could, it could really be helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Great to see you, Mike. Okay, so Hung Lee's timekeeping once again is terrible. And I don't know, I'm just too enthusiastic about these demos, and basically I need to get on with it. We have Brett here. Brett, how are you doing?
Good. Are we officially in overtime right now?
We are well in overtime, man. But you got plenty of time. I want to give you space to do this. So thanks for hanging on, and all of your contributions in chat have been brilliant, by the way, Brett. Brett, for the people who don't know you, can you introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Brett Feig. I've been a recruiter, sourcer, and just overall tech nerd for the past 15 years. Kind of consider myself sort of a consummate student of the arts, always learning, always adapting, and kind of always playing with new technologies to see how they can make your day-to-day easier. So I was really psyched to kind of be able to talk a little bit about this and bring it down to a very practical level.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. So you've seen some demos, you've seen how people operate. There's some very simple sort of things that people are doing. Some things are a little bit more complicated. A quick question for you, Brett. Where would you say has been the most accessible way in which you've automated something in your own workflow, and which is the most highest impact? And are those two things the same or are they different?
So I'm very much a fan of sort of the no code, low code option. I think that's going to be the most accessible for people. I think there are, programs like Zapier and Make was mentioned, and Integrately, which I'm going to chat about a little bit. And they're simple and mostly cheap or free for the most part. You don't need to code. And it really allows you to take, 3 different programs you have that maybe require a little bit of administrative work to share data, and then seamlessly set it up so it's automatically doing it for you. And I think, I love all this GBT stuff, and I have used GBT to create Python scripts, do all kinds of crazy scraping operations, but that's just kind of fun for me. I think where it becomes really useful is when you kind of start with a challenge, right? There's an initiative, there's a problem that you need to solve, and you're using the automation in sort of a very simple way to reduce total time, or to make it so you don't have to re-enter information across 3 systems, or you could, in the case that I'll be chatting about, sort of overcome gaps in your ATS or in your reporting that's going to allow you to actually produce better reporting for your business, or better insights for what's going on sort of a day-to-day basis, and everything that comes with that.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, I think this is probably what most people would think this is welcoming, because again, these are consumer grade tools. So love to see what you want to show, Brett. Why don't you go ahead and share screen and we'll take a look see.
Yep. Let's go ahead and do that and share entire. Okay. So for everyone out there that their eyes have glazed over with all the talk of Python coding and all the talk of using different LLMs through APIs, this presentation is going to be for you. This is going to be really, really simple. And I'm going to kind of show how it sort of all fits together in sort of a diagram form, because that's the easiest way conceptually to understand it. But we're using a couple tools here. We're using JotForm in Greenhouse, because that goes to the why, which I'll chat about in a second. And we're using 2 different sort of automation programs and Google Docs, Zapier and Integrately. And what I want to say right now, and what I think I want people to walk away with, is that depending on what you want to automate, Zapier might do it better, or another program might do it better, depending on how that program has built out the internal connectivity between the 2 apps. So I want to talk a little about why I went down this road. So there was a couple problems that I was solving at my company. One is we wanted a way to standardize interviews, right? I wanted to make sure that every candidate who was screened by a recruiter, we were getting the same information, or the same consistent basic information from every candidate. So we had that level of assurance that any candidate who was ever screened, we knew we had information, we could go back, we could reference it, we could use it. Now, Greenhouse didn't really have that ability, at least at the time I built it. There was no sort of internal forms where we could have standard questions that the recruiters would fill out, other than the scorecards, which couldn't be referenced and couldn't be exported and couldn't be used as data. So it started as that. And we'll talk about it from a really simple standpoint. We were using JotForm as a way to create a standard form that the recruiter would fill out as they're interviewing a candidate. And it would have certain information in it that would come already. They'd fill in the gaps. There'd be some notes. There'd be some form fields that would be filled in that would allow that data to then be used for a reporting standpoint. So this may look intimidating, but it really, really isn't. I'm going to walk through it very, very quickly. So it all started with Greenhouse, right? Second a candidate was created, I set it up so it would send out something called a webhook, right? All you know is that's just a bit of code. And Zapier was then programmed to then grab that webhook and then add a little detail into the Greenhouse record that would have this unique JotForm link, right? And that unique JotForm link would already come with any of the information the candidate had submitted, their name, their email address, their phone number, further reducing the amount of actual work the recruiter had to do, because all that basic information would be in there already. That would be the first part. Now, the second part is when a candidate was going to be screened, the recruiter would simply go into the Greenhouse profile. They'd see that JotForm link. They'd click on it, and they'd fill out all the information and then end the call. That's where Zapier would come in. Now, Zapier was set to detect any sort of change within a JotForm. So once it saw that a new JotForm was created, it would then grab that, and it would take all that information from the interview, and it would do a couple things. One, it would capture critical details like the candidate's name, the department, the team, the interview, the date, the job function, the hiring manager, location, recruiter, so on and so forth. and would throw it into a Google Doc. So we had all this information right there at sort of our fingertips. It would also do something else. And for this, I use a program called Integrately, because from my experience, it had a lot more functionality when dealing with Greenhouse than Zapier did. Zapier had very limited functionality in terms of what could start an automation and what data it could actually pull out, whereas Integrately could grab almost everything. And Integrately would do two things. And this is the second part of why we built it. It would grab it from the job form, it would go into Greenhouse, and it would take a look and say, hey, did this candidate fill out any sort of EEO information? Because the next phase, and why automation 2 was really set up, was because we really wanted to hold ourselves accountable from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, meaning to make sure that as a recruiters, we're constantly being aware and making sure that we're screening a diverse set of candidates, as opposed to, you know, maybe other companies where they just go out and post on diverse boards, whoever applies, and that's kind of where it ends. We took a much more proactive approach to making sure we were starting with a diverse slate from the beginning. So Greenhouse would get a note from Integrately and would check to see if the candidate filled out any EEO data. If the candidate didn't, it would send a message to the recruiter that next time they chat to the candidate to just let them know they would receive a survey and that we do value diversity, and you know that's kind of the reason they're getting it. So to prompt them so they'd fill it out next time. It would do something else as well. It would also check to see if the record was in Greenhouse, and it would, if the record was found, it would take that job form information and a PDF that resulted from filling out the form, and it would attach it to the candidate's record, as well as updating key fields. So already now we've really not done anything more than fill out the standard interview notes, and we already have a populated PDF that has all the notes in it that's attached to the record, and any information that the recruiter gained that fit into any form fields, meaning like it had a updated phone number, or email address, or anything along those lines, it would detect the difference and would input it in there. Which brings us to the third point. So now we have a fully screened candidate. We have checked to see if they have EEO information. And if not, we've sort of prompted the recruiter the next time they chat to the candidate, say, hey, not sure if you received the survey. If you haven't, you will shortly. Here's a reason for it. Here's why it's important to us as a company. This is how it fits into our culture. It is optional, but it does help us make sure that we are doing the right thing at all times. Which leads to the third automation. And this also started with Greenhouse. Anytime a candidate was their stage was set to either interview or hired, it would do that same action over again. It would send another webhook, Integrately would capture it, and it would again do an EEO check. If it found that this time the EEO information was there, it would then update that candidate in the Google Sheet, and that will play a key reporting feature in a second. And if not, it would again notify the recruiter. Actually, we had it notify the recruiter via email and also Slack, all of it done through Integrately, which was great. Now, here's where it sort of comes down to it. So now we have all this great information kind of sitting in this document right here, and we're able to take it and in real time hook it up to a simple analytics program. We used Google Looker, which was part of Google Analytics. It was like a free Tableau sort of thing. And since this was a live document that was automatically being updated, we were able to produce very cool analytics reports in real time that would actually show us as a team, but also the business, how we were doing from a diversity standpoint, either month over month, or we could pull reports that simply said, all right, for any given period of time, here's the amount of candidates we screened that were diverse, non-diverse, or even ones that were pending EEO, meaning they didn't fill it out, and how many of them declined to share. We were also able to break that down by sort of recruiter, so we could celebrate the recruiters that were really going out of their way and had some really good equality within their numbers, as well as a bit of a leaderboard thing. No one wants to be sort of low on the leaderboard there. So it also became a bit of a team meeting document that we'd look after. And we'd also be able to slice the data, and I only showed a couple of different ways, but we're able to slice the data by every single way possible. So we're able to go to the engineering team and say, hey, here's what it looks like. Here's what we're seeing from a diversity standpoint, and then track it all the way through. And this was really, really helpful because I think as inclusion and belonging is such an important part of what we're doing. Without this sort of data, it's very easy for the business sort of point fingers and say, well, maybe we don't have great numbers in our team. That's because, TA really isn't doing their job. And we were then able to proactively talk to each team and show kind of the amount of candidates we were screening, what it looked like from a diversity standpoint, whether we were, whether that was sort of a gender or an ethnicity sort of standpoint, and produce these reports on demand very easily for any business, and even give them customized reporting, give them an always live link so they could go in and check anytime they wanted. Now I'm going to stop there because I wanted to highlight the simplicity of it. No code was used in creating any of this. I don't think it cost us more than like $60 a month for like the added Integrately license, maybe even less. And once we had this set up, it worked like a machine. You just sat back and every information, we had consistency, we had reporting, we had analytics, and we didn't need a development team to do it. In fact, I was able to do it in my spare time, right? Hook it up and make it work in a very, very short period of time. Probably maybe, an hour to set it up and an hour and a half to troubleshoot it over and over again till I got it just the way I wanted. But once it was set up, it would just work seamlessly, and we get alerts every time it was being updated.
That's fantastic.
So I'll stop there. Yeah.
No, that's really, really good. I think what this is, you can stop sharing screen now, Brett.
Yep.
But I think what this is a wonderful illustration of is what is possible to do with just one guy. I mean, basically, it looks like one person can do it with consumer grade tools. It doesn't cost you anything. And here, what you have is like a live action dashboard that your CEO could get access to if he or she's concerned about whatever data you wanted to capture. And as you say, it's like picking up the gaps of the core software that didn't quite do what you wanted to do. Rather than just accept that that's the case, you can actually work with some of this sort of additional software, use a middleware tool, Zapier, Integrately, whatever you might want to use, and then create these outcomes, which will significantly elevate or at least solve the problem that the core tool didn't do. That's a wonderful illustration, Brett. Alex, I think you're going to say something.
Yeah, so I'm saying that's exactly right. And I think the real value of a lot of these automation tools is it gives you the ability to say, hey, here's something I can't do, but I want to do. Is there a way that we could automate it? Is there a way I could kind of connect these two so we could fill out less information and spend less time doing administrative tasks, but still end up with valuable data that we could share with the business, accountability, and really, and without having to pull reports every single month, right? Or every single week, and have this sort of on demand to also keep ourselves accountable, make sure we're doing the right things in this case.
You know what was go on ahead, Alex, you about to say something. Definitely.
Yeah, this is why I think it's really important what you showcase, because this is a standard objection against automation, that it will kill our soul, we will be machines and so on and so on. But on the other hand, I always ask our students that what is your value added in the recruitment or sourcing process? So if you just create such a dashboard or a similar tool, then you will see your real value, that you can do this, you will see new insights. So it means that you will be able to improve your process. So it means that you won't die, for example, with 1,000 CVs or similar without knowing anything about the market or your process. So I think this is the true essence of it.
Absolutely. And there's not a recruiter that exists today that wouldn't rather do less administrative work, right? Or pull less reports or be in Excel less. Well, actually, there's probably a few that would like to be in Excel a little bit more. But other than that, yeah, it's really simple, and you can do this today, or a version of it today.
Before we let you go, there's going to be people that say, "Okay, this is all wonderful, but how do I learn how to do this? Like, how did you learn how to do this? Is there a place that people can go to, get better at this?"
Absolutely. So Zapier has a really good help library, but if I had to be really honest, like automation for me started back in the day of like, if this, then that. If you remember, that was like one of the first programs. And back then it was like, wait a second. Every time I enter my house, I can have my phone send me a text message or turn off my lights. And it was really dumb automation. Like, I don't know why you'd want to do it. Just the fact that you could. And that was sort of the precipice for it. But anyone who wants, go on Zapier. They have plenty of help videos. YouTube is full of those help videos. And I think, Alexandra, you were mentioning, you could literally type what you want it to do, and Zapier will suggest which apps to connect, which apps it can connect. And for their sort of trial and error, Zapier will give you a free account. And I think the limitations is you could have like one automation. It can't be multiple steps. Some of these had multiple steps to pull information and cross-reference, but you could play around with it for free and just say, what information do I want to move over? Do I want everyone who schedules an interview with me on Calendly to then go into a spreadsheet so I could have a quick reference, who's everyone I chatted to this week? Or, you know, an email to go out or something to go on your calendar as a reminder. These are all really practical. My advice would be, you know, what's keeping you up at night? What's dragging you down? What's the bane of your day-to-day existence? Make one of those things better or easier and make your life easier.
And you know what, Brett? I think that is that's one of the things recruiters got to think about. It doesn't have to be necessarily candidate orientated. It could just be simple office productivity wise. You know, as you say, look at your calendar. What are you doing in your calendar? Are you on point? Yesterday, I triple booked my commitments. And that's just bad calendar management. But I assume that, you know, with some of this tooling, I could probably avoid all of this stuff. So yeah, I'm going to dive into it myself. I'm going to lead the way and not just talk about it. But Brett, listen, we're well over time, so we'll have to let you go. Thank you so much for joining. By the way, in terms of what you're doing now, I mean, I'm sure loads of people will say, hey, listen, Brett, are you available to, you know, talk about this? Can we pay you some money to help us with this? What's the situation with you right now?
Yeah, so I'm currently available. I just finished up about a 4-year stint building a startup from 30 to 350 people. So I'm just had a third child, who's now about 6 months old. So I'm quasi kind of enjoying that and you know, keeping an ear to the ground and kind of entertaining some opportunities. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, there you go, folks. Make sure you connect with all of the wonderful speakers we've had on the show. They're all like leading experts in what I call thinking and doing when it comes to AI and recruiting. So great to see you, Brett. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show soon, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Alex, listen, we got to leave it because basically I've eaten 90 minutes of your time and everyone is like, we're already like well over the calendar. I'm amazed that 60 people are still watching on Crowdcast. So listen, it was a great show. I mean, so interesting. I mean, I don't know whether you saw anything that you thought, okay, I'm going to try this out, or whether you've tried anything yourself.
Yes,
Alex,
of course. So I just try to take some notes in the background. So yeah, so I already know, for example, the ChatGPT agents, but I clearly realize that I have to upskill in other tools as well. So it means that maybe in a future recruiting Brainfood, that would be great to have first steps in automation. So as I just checked the questions, I think it would be really interesting. So exactly the first steps. Let's just start it because I think it would be really useful for recruiters.
What we should do is probably do exactly that, like a workshop. So part of what Brainfood setup is like it's a discussion, and so it's difficult to necessarily do a proper demo. But what we should do is like literally have a demo and say, okay, we are now going to automate this thing, and then boom, 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 get people sign up for that, and then take it on from there.
Yeah, and exactly just the first steps, how to start, because it is just like ChatGPT. You start to use it, then you will have a feeling, of course, then you can have some training and so on and so on. But the first steps, I think it is really important to have. And it is not about being a machine or a robot, just start to use it.
Yeah, lots of people interested in that. We're going to try and make that happen. Okay, we're going to let it go. Folks, thanks for watching for the longest show ever on Brainfood Live. We are back. Actually, we're back next week. I tell you what, on Tuesday, I will be speaking to Rainer Bruns, who's the CTO of Scotty AI, which is one of the products that is going to try and do all of this off the shelf. So if you can't be bothered with doing all of this, like plugging together, you can simply buy software to do it. I'm going to speak to Rainer and find out what his founder journey is and what his future is. So make sure you follow the channel here if you want to get notified on that. We'll be talking about programmatic advertising on Friday next week as well. So if you're interested in another way of getting more efficient, you should be checking that out also. Okay, we've got to go because I've actually got to go. We've got a call in about 1 minute. So Alex, thanks so much for joining Brainfood Live. We'll have to get you back. Thanks everyone else for watching. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.